Hello, welcome everyone. This is our first time doing an event like this, but excited that we have a great group together. Hopefully, we'll all learn something today from each other and really appreciate everyone who logged in. I think um, we've got over like close to 150 people that registered. So, pretty excited to talk with everyone that we have on the panel today. And our first guest today is Tim Herman. Tim's the CEO of a company called UpEquity based in Austin, but I'll let Tim kind of tell us more about his company. Tim and I have known each other for a few years now, both being in the space and had some overlap in San Francisco. Now we're both in Austin. We see each other in person a lot. We've been on panels together before, and we will try not to get too off topic as we've been known to do. But Tim, welcome and tell us a little bit about UpEquity, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm excited to be here, excited to your community. So, about UpEquity, what we are really is a buy before you sell company. So, we partner with real estate agents and with lenders and with title companies, basically any real estate company, to remove contingencies from their transactions. And the whole point of that is to help get deals that are stuck in your pipeline across the finish line, right? So, if somebody needs to um, buy and sell a house at the same time, everybody here is probably familiar with a litany of obstacles and challenges of making those transactions happen at the same time. And what we do is we remove all the obstacles associated with qualifying for the new loan, associated with the down payment on the new home, and with paying two mortgages at the same time. And the way that we do that is we will buy the client's departing residence, their old home, for full market value. And we can talk about that later, but excited to get into the questions.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I know the company well. And I guess one thing to kind of kick things off is, obviously rates have changed more in the last probably 6 months than they have at any time in you and I's lifetime. Um, how do you think that impacts kind of the market, and then, how your product can help? I think your product is more relevant now than it was even, in like in a low rate environment. So maybe just thinking through like how rates have kind of changed how you think about things, and then how the product specifically could, help someone or help an agent get a deal done, I guess, in this case.
Yeah, so I think that what rates have done is they've exacerbated a more fundamental underlying problem with the real estate market in this country. And what that is that we have a supply and demand imbalance, right? We haven't built enough housing in this country for the past 20 years. And this was something that people really talked about in 2020 or 2021 when the market was going crazy. But it's no less true today, right? There still isn't enough housing, which is why when rates went up and demand went down, you also had this. Have you heard of the seller strike? I'm sure, right? Is
Oh
people
yeah.
their homes because they're emotionally tied to that 3% mortgage and they don't want to give that up for a higher rate. And so what our view is that the real problem underlying all of this is that we just don't have enough housing supply. And so that's a long lasting, long term problem. And that's been exacerbated by the increase in the interest rates, right? Because you've dampened demand, but you've also at the same time limited supply that was already really tight, which is why you're seeing less volume, but home prices staying robust, right? Is in most markets it's still a seller's market, and there still are, the prices aren't falling off of a cliff. And so what that does, like you were saying, that our product is even more valuable now, is when supply is tighter, it's harder to coordinate those two transactions, right? It if supply is tight, a seller is not going to accept a home sale contingency on an offer that they're receiving, right? And so right now, people know that they can sell their home, but they don't know if they can get into the next one. And so it's a really difficult problem to solve, because what happens if you sell your home, you can't get into the next one, you're moving in with in-laws, or you're moving into the to short-term rental, you have two moves. So it's a real problem. And I think that, like you said, the ability to coordinate those two transactions seamlessly is very powerful today.
Yeah, so I guess kind of the way that y'all have been able to grow the product in kind of this crazy time is just giving people a way to kind of get out of their current house, or to have kind of an option where they don't have to go through this crazy, like, perfect timing. Like, I remember when I was an agent trying to coordinate, selling a house, and then someone's trying to buy another house, and lining up, like, closing on the same day, or closing on a Friday and moving in on a Monday. And that was always super stressful. And, I think the reason why, like, Open Door and some of these iBuyer companies did so well in the beginning, at least, was, just like this certainty. Like, consumers and home sellers love the certainty and kind of removing the barriers and obstacles and anything, because a lot of people only move a couple times in their lives, and for us, it's in the industry, we're around this stuff all the time. But for home buyers and sellers, it can be one of the most exciting times, but also one of the most stressful. So I guess if someone's using your product, it would be just a way to kind of ease the pain, in a way, is kind of how I think about it. But I guess for everyone listening, maybe talk through, like, kind of step by step how it flows, like if someone's wanting to, work with the product.
Sure. Yeah, happy to dig into that. But first, I want to build on one of the things you were saying about the emotional nature of this transaction, right? I think that realtors and real estate agents are such an important part of this ecosystem, because, like you said, it's a deeply personal decision that people make very infrequently, and it's a high value decision. And for most Americans, it is the only way that they accrue or store wealth, right? So I actually think that real estate agents are a very noble profession in terms of helping people access the American dream, and helping uh, get people to act rationally and in their own self-interest, right? One of the things when I started the company that was really shocking to me was Housing Wire has this statistic that buying a house in America today is so stressful that it's leaving 40% of consumers in tears, right? And that doesn't seem to be the kind of society that I want to live in, or the kind of world that we should have or leave behind for our kids, right? And so our mission is to create more equal access to the American dream. Our mission is to make sure that people have access to home ownership, and that they can do that in a seamless, frictionless way, right? And so you're talking about the stress of buying and selling and moving all at the same time. And with the agents that we work with, that is keeping a lot of their potential clients on the sideline, right? You have a family that has outgrown a home, or you have any number of reasons why the house that somebody is living in is no longer right for their situation. And they know that they could sell it, but they're too afraid about being able to coordinate these two transactions. And so they stay in the wrong situation for themselves. And so what you can do with our product is, we're going to give you that full market value offer to sell your house, but we're going to give you a flexible closing date, right? And so you take this offer from us, knowing that you can move around that closing date and wait until you find your new home to set that closing date. And so you can take that, and you can go and you can shop contingency free, and find the right house, make the strongest offer, get under contract. And then once you know the timing of the second house, align the closing of our purchase of your departing residence, so that there's a single move and it all happens on the same day. And so there's two really important things that I would say about this process. Number one is that stress relief, right? The stress relief that enables agents to get their clients off the sidelines. But number two is, there's real value to removing the home sale contingency from your offer. It's 4 times more likely to be accepted. And what the statistics show is that you can actually get under contract for 2 to 4% less than you otherwise would have, right? Sam, if you're making a contingent offer, what's the way that you would overcome that and be competitive? It's probably to just offer more money, right? And so
Right,
if you
yeah, to pay a higher price or yeah, I mean, that'd be the only kind of lever I feel like if you were going with a contingency on the offer.
That's right. And so the whole point of what we're doing is to remove the stress and to help make that offer stronger without having to overpay for the house.
Right. Yeah, so I guess it's like the way to think about it, just kind of going deeper on that. It's like I know a lot of people, a lot of these buy before you sell or kind of like iBuyer, a lot of these kind of new age financing products have come on the market in the last couple of years. And, a lot of agents and consumers have started using products like this. A lot of people hear about them, but, I think a lot of people that have sold homes before, bought homes before, still kind of like default to the old way in a sense where they just try to like line everything up properly. But what I really love about like what y'all are doing is you're not trying to like disrupt or change like the flow of how like the transaction has taken place traditionally. Like I think a lot of companies lose their way when they try to change consumer behavior like drastically or get in the way of like how things have been done. And really like shift a model to like something that hadn't been done before. Like the way that I think about your company is you're kind of just aiding a process that's already happening and like making it more efficient and less stressful. And even though it's like foreign to like what people have been used to using before, it's similar enough or like when they get into it, they would feel comfortable. Is that kind of like a right way to think about it? Like if someone was thinking about using something like this?
Yeah, it's a generous way to describe us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that there's two problems that a lot of the innovative companies make. Number one is that they underestimate and don't have enough respect for the role of the real estate agent. I think the real estate agent is a key portion of this transaction and always will be, right? And so anything
Right.
that any of these companies that come in and they try to work around or displace agents or lenders, I think it's really difficult and it's a strategic error because they just don't appreciate enough of the value that is created, right? And then the second thing is it's just kind of building on that, which is if you can build value and share that value with the agents, um, there's enough meat on the bone in this transaction and in this industry that you can create a ton of value and take just a tiny little bit um, uh, without having to charge the agent, without having to charge the lender, without having to get too greedy. Like Open Door you mentioned. If you use Open
Mhm.
Door or any of these iBuyers, you end up leaving 12% to 14% of the value of your most important asset on the sideline. Our whole goal is to get you as much as possible for your home, and our goal is not to charge rent to the agent, right? I'm not asking for our partners to pay us. We're actually sharing revenue with the agents that work with us, with the lenders that work with us. So I think that an abundance mindset and trying to collaborate as opposed to displace people in the ecosystem is the way that we think about this.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, that's obviously similar mindset for me. It's like, the industry's changing a lot, but it's also there's a lot of things that are kind of staying the same. And, especially with like what we're doing with just kind of the way we think about it is, finding ways to help agents run their business better, but kind of staying out of the way, and we're not taking commission. A lot of people like don't understand, how we make money because they're stuck in kind of this old mindset where like the commission split's the only business model that works, which
Right.
I could spend the whole hour talking about why I think that's funny. But a lot of people don't think about like when you build a company from the ground up and the expenses and just the way the company works behind the scenes, you're able to build innovative products kind of on a different foundation than just like defaulting to the old way and then trying to just change the fee structure or something to like make the product work.
So that's what I love about what you guys are doing at Pinnacle, right? And it goes back to the fundamental difference between viewing life as a zero sum game where you can only win if somebody else loses, or a positive
Right.
sum game where you can win together, right? And I think that what you guys are building, and there's a couple other examples of it, but I think that you guys are at the forefront of this, is you're providing real value for your agents in a way that creates value for them, yourself, and your client. And I think it's even more important in a shifting market. That your first question was about how rising interest rates are affecting us, but they're affecting everybody.
Hmm.
They're affecting
For
everybody because
sure.
there's less volume, which means that people in this ecosystem are all going into survival mode, right? And so when people are in survival mode, whether that's a lender or whether that is a real estate broker or whether that is the agent themselves, they're typically focusing on their core competencies, and they're not pushing the envelope of innovation, and they're not finding new ways to do business and to grow. And what I love about what you're doing is that um, you're taking that onus on yourself and going out and vetting all of these incredible resources for the agents that are on your platform in a way
Right.
that is, a positive sum game. I'm going to keep coming back to that. Is life is not zero sum, it's positive sum. It's about surrounding yourself with people that want to see you succeed and that you can help them succeed.
Yeah. No, no, I love that. I mean, I've never said it that well myself, but I love how you said that because, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my perspective comes from being at other companies, like being at starting out at a Sotheby's firm, and they had partnerships with other like companies, but really they made the partnerships just because it helped like add, profit to like the brokerage in a way where like, and then being inside of Compass, they were trying to like vertically integrate a lot of services and things where, it wasn't the best for the agents. It was kind of best for the company. And so, I mean, I think just my background's kind of shaped a lot about how I think about that. But the best way for me to do it is like as the industry changes, one company could never in any industry, like one company could never keep up with like the pace of change and try to like build everything internally and launch everything internally. And so like exactly like you said, the way that we try to think about it is finding awesome companies like yours, and others that can help our agents, and find ways just to work together. And, if people make money or referral fees or whatever, or if they don't, that's fine too. It's really just kind of building this platform and ecosystem where like companies that are like-minded can help each other out. And at the end of the day, it's, helps the consumers, which I'm inspired a lot by like Jeff Bezos when he thinks about that. Like he has a famous line when he launched Amazon Prime, which he launched in like 6 weeks. He kind of has a famous line like, no one's ever gonna wish that their package arrived slower. It's like that was like his simple way to think about like offering free shipping. It's like no matter what happens in the world, like no one's gonna wish their package arrived slower. And like I know that's a weird like way to think about like what we're both doing, but it's like no one's gonna wish they had like a worse transaction experience, or no one's gonna wish it was like harder to buy a home, or no one's gonna wish they made like less money or something like that.
So I
And
want to
so
riff
like
on a little bit, right? Is like there's one problem in residential real estate, which is it's so infrequent that the consumer doesn't know how difficult it can be until they're halfway through the transaction. So
right,
that's one thing. And then the other thing is the people that do know how difficult it is or aren't educated enough are intimidated about the transaction, right? And I think a lot about that because I'm so passionate about homeownership as a way of creating wealth for individual Americans, right? When you talk about nobody wishing that their package arrived slower, or nobody ever wishing that their um, real estate transaction was slower, more stressful.
Right.
The other thing is, if people zoom out, I think there are very few, if any, cases in American history where, if you look back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you wish that you rented instead of bought, right? And I think that
Hmm.
the major role of a real estate agent is to help talk to clients, and talk them through the emotional ups and downs of this journey, right? And I think that right now, when the media is talking about um, interest rates going up and inflation, it's very easy to get intimidated as a buyer and to get too caught up in that mortgage rate, right? One of the things that's really important about your mortgage rate is number one is that, assuming that you get a fixed rate mortgage, you are fixing your payment for the next 30 years. There's never been a time in history of this country that rent has not gone up, right? So
Hmm.
whether your interest rate is at 2% or 5% or 10%, at least you're fixing your payment at what it is today. Whereas if you are renting as opposed to buying, you're going to be paying more every single year, right? So that's the
Right.
first thing. The second thing is, I think that people forget about how do interest rates interact with inflation, right? And so if interest rates remain high, it's because inflation remained high, which means that renting was an even worse decision, right?
Right.
Uh, on the other hand, if it works, interest rates are going to come back down, um, and then you can refinance. And I'm not saying I'm
Right.
not forecasting rates. I think it's really important to say, um, anybody that tells you that they know what rates are going to do tomorrow or in the future, I think they're deluding themselves and lying to you. Because if they could tell you that, they'd go to Wall
Right.
Street and do something else, right? Um,
Exactly.
what I'm saying, though, is the important thing is not knowing where interest rates are going to go. It's knowing that fixing your payment is a good move for you economically, and that in the case that rates stay high, you were better off buying today. And in the case that rates go down, you can refinance. And so it's like there's that
Right.
saying, marry the house, date the rate. I think that it's important to help talk to clients about the fact that homeownership is still a good idea, regardless of where rates are today or where they're going to go tomorrow.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And that's something, yeah, it's like everyone that the last few years, if they feel like they missed out or something on buying because rates were low, it's like I think that's a bad way to think about it. Um, I think rates were artificially low for a number of reasons for way too long, and it's like we're getting it's been crazy how fast rates have risen, but it's my mom always talks about when she bought a condo in like the 80s and the interest rate was like 16%. And that's something like you and I have never even seen in our lifetime, but a rate environment, like where we are now, and if, things calm down, I think just giving people like, clarity around that and people realizing that rates will stay in some sort of range. But like you said, if they go way back down for some reason that no one can predict, then people can refinance and then they're in a house they love. Um, renting at different stages in life works fine, but I think at some point, owning a home is obviously a great thing for a number of reasons outside of like, it being an asset. But home ownership's more complicated than like just buying a property for an investment. A house is a lot more than just like numbers to people. And so like having a place where they can stay and not have to worry about leaving because they're renting and things like that. There's a lot that kind of goes into it to me too.
I mean, 100%.
Um,
That's why we're so passionate about it, right? We're passionate about the American dream because statistics show that communities with a high percentage of home ownership, they have better outcomes for the children of those communities.
mhm.
There's instances of crime. There's higher instances of volunteer ship. The communities where home ownership is robust they're healthier, happier communities.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, 25 minutes went by fast, but we will, at the end, we're having a panel with everyone that's been involved. So Tim will be back on here in about 45 minutes, but we will move on to the next speaker. But thank you. Thank you, Tim, for this one-on-one time and explaining, the product, and more to come in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Excited to partner together. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And we're back. I'm not sure how this looks for everyone else, but Eric is joining us. Eric and I have known each other also for some time, and he's been involved in very different parts of the industry than my background, and he's had a wide-ranging career in this space. And then even more recently, now he's started his own company and kind of gotten back into the entrepreneurial side. So I'll let Eric kind of give us, summary on your background and all the places you've worked and all the things you've done and kind of what you're working on now, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Sam, and appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Really great session, by the way, that you guys just came off of. So just a quick intro on my end. Eric Eckardt, I have over 20 years of experience, primarily in the real estate sector. Worked for public, private, startup companies. Actually obtained my real estate broker's license back in 2004. So lived through the Great Recession, the peaks and valleys, and most recently, the last few roles I had was with a company called Purple Bricks, Real, and other online platforms like Hubzu, where we sold single-family residential homes, either online or offline, with licensed real estate professionals that were always in the center of the transaction. So feel very fortunate for the experience that I've had. Currently, just real quick, I'm involved in a startup, Sam noted, called Veracrest, which is a platform that we allow our partners to add real estate brokerage to their ecosystem. So if they have a captive audience, we provide a bolt-on solution for them to unlock value by adding real estate brokerage through a 100% owned entity with 100% revenue capture. Then we source, capture, manage, and place those leads with third-party licensed real estate professionals. So we provide high-intent, qualified leads to the real estate community across the U.S. So really excited about this venture. Early days, made some public announcements, and having a few more on the horizon. So that's just a quick intro on my experience.
Nice. No, it's awesome. I mean, Eric's downplaying himself. He's done a lot of cool things, and we've had a lot of fun discussions just talking about the industry changing and things over the years. And he's helped me think through a lot of stuff, like with our company as it's gone through various stages. But I guess kind of the first question, like kind of going back to, the agent being the center of the transaction, and or kind of being the kind of an important piece of the transaction, like with all the companies you've worked with before and all the things you've seen, it's like over the last decade, things have changed a lot. But right now, it seems like things in the industry are changing probably more than they have in a long time. And just, given your perspective and background, like, what do you kind of think of like the current environment just in the brokerage sector, and, things that companies are doing and trying, and kind of where do you think, like, what do you think the most important things are that brokerages are doing well right now that will kind of evolve into the future? And like, what are some things that brokerages have traditionally done that maybe, will kind of go away as agents evolve in the industry too?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start with the first part of that question. It's kind of the overall landscape over the last decade or so. So if you look, just go back even to 2015, there's been over 50 billion institutional capital that's flooded our space through providing other optionality or other models into our marketplace. And some of that capital has landed with more quote unquote traditional firms and more what we'll call challenger brands that have entered the marketplace. And I think what's more relevant now than ever is just the importance of having an agent at the center of the transaction. There's been a lot of capital trying to displace the real estate professional. In the models I've been involved in, we've always realized the value in either partner with industry, or we vertically integrated and had the licensed agent provide that 5-star customer service / experience to the consumer. Right now on the investment side, and I'll get back into the initial question around the brokerage model, what's working, what's not working is, there's been some softness. I call it a more disciplined allocation of capital. I think some of the or some names that have been funded historically have not had the most prudent operations, quite frankly, with unfavorable unit economics. They weren't generating cash flow. And I think as you see capital be deployed going forward, investors will look for companies that have either on their path to profitability or they're at profitability today. And outside of that, you'll continue to see a lot of consolidation in the space. With regard to brokerages, I think what's important today, at least from my perspective and what I've seen in folks I'm engaging with like yourself and other participants in the marketplace, is really being able to add value to the agent community. And as a byproduct of that, ultimately providing a great consumer experience. So making sure you have the right products, tools, services, training, platform, and have a model that can survive, the various market trends and cycles that we're in, such as obviously Pinnacle. You guys have a very lean operating model that provides a lot of great value for agents. You talked about some of those benefits in the last session, and I think that's more important now than ever for an agent to have access to a platform that will allow them to be successful. So I think that's really important. I think some of the more traditional models that have a very high fixed operating expense are going to continue to, quite frankly, to be challenged, especially in the current environment with volumes down about 25-30% this year. I believe NAR's most recent numbers, they report about 4.4 million annualized sales is what they're looking at. So there's obviously a softness in the marketplace and some macro headwinds, and we can dive into what that means. There's less transaction volume on the table, and for them to have that maintain that fixed operating expense, or in some cases debt on the balance sheet. Think of Anywhere. They still have billions of dollars of debt on their balance sheet from their LBO buyout from Apollo back in 2006. They're still servicing. I think that's very challenging. You look at companies like Compass, and I know I shouldn't be mentioning names, but since it's we'll remember this is a full transparency. They're in a race to cut costs and reduce their spend, and they're in survival mode. And we're seeing that across the name, and we can go through every name. And that's why I think it's so important to be with a model that can not only be 5-10 years out, but provide again the tools and services platform that you need to be successful with the right leadership. So those are just my initial thoughts.
No, I love that. I mean, I love your comment about the last decade or so. There's all these companies and venture capital that's flowed into companies that are trying to get rid of real estate agents, because from the outside looking in, venture capital firms or people are like, stockbrokers went the way of like online trading, travel agents turned into Expedia, real estate agents or and people think they can kind of automate that process also. But anyone that's in the space knows that it's way harder to automate a home sale. There's things you can make better and streamline processes and things, but at the end of the day, I think people still want to be able to talk to an agent and have someone there to help them like think through the transaction. So like to me, that's a central theme of kind of the whole transformation in the space. It's like being cognizant of the agent being in the center of the transaction. And I think you and I both agree that agents, if you power them up in the right way or kind of put them in a place to succeed, then the consumers benefit the most. And so it's like, I guess, what do you think is the right balance? A lot of companies, like even Compass, which it's fine if we mention names, a lot of companies traditionally over the last 3 or 4 years, Keller Williams, Compass, Remax, all of these companies were investing, hundreds of millions of dollars into like building tech from scratch and things like that, where, a lot of agents are fine just using tools that they're used to using. From your perspective, what do you think is most important, when an agent's looking around, like, what do you think an agent should be thinking about when like looking for the right firm? Is it, cost, services, combination of both, partnerships, tools they provide? I know we've talked about this offline, but just, the ecosystem around the service side, and how important do you think it is for like a brokerage or a platform to think about things outside of just, the basics and adding other services and support to the agent ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's obviously intangible and intangible items that you should look for in a brokerage. Obviously, you want to have the right culture, leadership, believe in the mission, and on the path you're moving forward, the folks you'll be engaging with on your journey within the real estate profession. Outside of that, obviously, you want to have kind of the core, what I call table stakes, core competency as operating a real estate brokerage. Make sure they have a tech stack that you can plug into that can support your business, whether it's transaction management platform, CRM, the tools that you'll want to use to be successful in the space. This is a cliche we all heard, but people always ask, well, what is the best technology out there? What tools should I use? It's the one that you're using. That's the best technology for each category, or whether transaction management, CRM, valuation. If the one you're using is the one that usually works best, because having adoption is one of the things we found hardest from a brokerage perspective, because you can offer a suite of services and products, but at the end of the day, if your agent base is not using it, then they're really not that effective in the marketplace. And to go back a little bit to your initial opening to this question about, comps that have deployed, millions or tens, hundreds of millions into developing technology, it's hard. And, it's not just in the real estate sector. You can point across various industries, adjacent industries. Building technology is hard. So if there's a solution out there, our view has always been, we lived through both, through product delivery, and we also lived through just partnering and white labeling, quite frankly, using products that have been battle tested in the market already. So I think from an agent or a broker perspective, they want to, look for someone to join forces with. I think those are just some of the key things they need to have, is to make sure they have the right tech stack, the right tools, services, make sure the right support infrastructure. I mentioned culture, which again is the intangible, because I think at the end of the day, that's a differentiator that typically cannot be replicated with an organization.
Mm-hmm.
You can always walk across the street and go somewhere else and find something better. But at the end of the day, you really got to believe in the mission of the organization and the leadership and the team behind it. I think that's really important. The last thing I'll just mention is I think it's as time kind of goes on, you start looking at affiliated services, ancillary services, start adding those on. Not really as relevant, but those could be important too, depending on the model and how important the margin is versus traditional versus more cloud-based, which again is really just having the core competency today, or table stakes. These are things you need to have in today's market. If you and I were to launch a brokerage today, another brokerage out of our garage, we wouldn't go out and rent 10,000 square feet of office space. And we would go out and operate a very lean model, which we're seeing today, and what you're doing with success today with your organization.
Yeah. No. I love that you said the culture piece, because that's just something, I'm super transparent, and we get a lot of questions about our company and how does it work and how do we make money and all these things, and how do you build culture in a remote environment and all these things. And so like diving into the culture one a little bit more, it's like, culture to me it transcends more than just like physical space. I think traditionally a lot of people think, oh, how do you build a culture if you don't have, like you're saying, like the 10,000 square foot office space.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I always kind of think that's funny when, people think that you have to have these physical spaces that, cost a lot of money, and can put a really bad kind of burn on a company. Like a lot of, agents and consumers and a lot of people don't think about the behind the scenes with how companies operate. Like how you and I might think about, the expense side of running traditionally brokerages, in the last 20 years. They have an office. One advantage of being with a big brokerage, which this is going to sound funny, but before the internet, people picked brokerages. You had to be at a big brokerage because they were the people that were paying for advertising space, like in the Sunday newspaper. I mean, a lot of people don't think about this, but the way listings were distributed, like pre-Zillow or pre-internet, was through like the Sunday paper. And if you weren't at a big, firm, you weren't going to get your listings distributed. And so I think a lot of companies still are in that like mindset of building their business in a way, and they haven't evolved. But kind of going back to the culture side, it's like, the culture is, the people at the company. There's still ways to kind of host, in-person events, or doing events like this, and kind of just reinvesting into other resources around, certain ideas and things like that. But the main thing, like, just like as companies evolve, do you think there's a way, like with remote work and all these things, like even outside of the brokerage space, where do you kind of think we'll land on that into the spectrum, like a hybrid type model, work from home some days, with real estate agents, they work from anywhere, but just generally speaking, I think there's a big cultural debate right now around offices. And I always like to ask people that, like, where do you kind of think the office and kind of work from home movement lands just with brokerage companies or traditional companies in general?
Yeah, no, I think the office is more of an antiquated mindset. Just having, believing you need that brick and mortar in order to build a culture. I mean, if you go back and you look at traditional brokerage, just drill down a little deeper. I mean, the average pre-tax income margin on a traditional brokerage, if they're making money, is single digits, 7 to 8%. There's a lot of market data out there supporting that statement or that number that I'm making. So you're already operating on very slim margins. So to add another level of fixed operating expense on top of that, to me, isn't prudent use of cash when building a business, especially in the brokerage space. So I think that's very challenging. With regard to remote work, it's something that might be a bias in my response because I've been doing it for many years. In a former life, I resided in Central Europe, but our team was across the U.S. We had shared services in India and the Philippines. We had, an operation in South America, but our core market was the U.S. real estate market. It was an online platform. We sold 25 to 30,000 homes a year, REO assets online. So culture and what, was always very important for us. And it was just basically having the right tools of communication to collaborate and giving folks, that empowerment to make decisions and delivering and actually caring about the business and caring about the folks on your team and building that. You can't just put that on back of a recruiting brochure. You actually have to demonstrate that, or folks will read through that and, obviously it wouldn't be present. So I think that's important. It's just something you got to do day to day and generally care about your business, care about your people, and believe in what you're building and believe in the company and the organization and really have everyone's best interest in mind to be successful. I think that's so important. It's intangible that's really hard to teach or, craft. You just actually have to do it day to day. And that comes over time, at least in my experience. So the short answer to your question is I believe, remote work is here to stay. Obviously, we saw, the catalyst with COVID kind of accelerated that. And I know there's some folks revisiting that and pulling folks back into the office, but for the most part, most positions and roles, especially real estate, you want to be out in the market. You want to be spending time on your business, not in your business. You want to be out there generating new opportunities, building relationships in the community, keeping your head down, really, keeping that pipeline filled. So I think that's imperative. You're not going to do that sitting in an office. I mean, you could, I guess you could work the phones, online leads, whatever that may be, but you want to be out there engaging with people. That's what we do. So I think it's important to, maintain that remote work element, especially in our profession.
Yeah, no, I agree. We've got a few more minutes kind of shifting topics to kind of just like a high level industry trend or theme. But with this, commission kind of lawsuit that's working its way through the court right now that, a lot of people may or may not know about, but there's a pretty large lawsuit that's going on revolving around commission sharing and how commissions are advertised and the way that MLSs present commissions. And a lot of the big brokerages are named kind of in this lawsuit that the Department of Justice, this has been on and off for years, but if there were, like, especially with your background in other markets, like in European countries and a lot of other markets, the commissions work differently. Like I know in, like in London, for instance, buyers will hire agents more like in an hourly role. Like there's not this commission that's kind of shared by the seller. And there's a lot of things that could change, or they may not change. I always ask people this, like with the commission changes in America, how would it impact the market? And I know we've talked about this or thought about this, outside of this forum, but just do you think that will gain any ground? And then I guess, do you think the traditional like business model, the legacy brokerage business model where they make 100% of their revenue from taking commissions from agents will be severely impacted, if there were some big change with the commission lawsuit that's kind of working its way through right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something everyone should be mindful of. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No, but just given the progress since the litigation or the plaintiff filed their lawsuit in 2019 to where we are today, most recently it was granted certification status, so class action lawsuit status by, I believe it was Judge Wood in the Northern District of Illinois. So it's gaining ground, it's gaining traction. There's obviously a series of events that has to take place for this to actually potentially materialize, go to trial, court, appeals, before it actually impacts the market. But I think at the end of the day, the premise behind the lawsuit was that they're challenging NAR and the four companies that you referenced about the cooperation fee required in the MLS. So basically, they're challenging, saying, why should, given the fact that the MLS board's governed by NAR, that you're requiring us to put an offer of cooperation and buy-side commission, their view of the world is that's inflating commission fees. And that commission fees in the US should be cut in half, 3%. There should not be a buy-side commission. The seller should not be paying the buy-side commission. Their view of the world is that licensed real estate professionals, buyer agents who are valued and needed, quite frankly, should be negotiating their fees directly with the consumer, the home buyer. And if that were to take place, the ramifications would be significant, I believe. I believe, you'd see a number of potential firms drop out of the market. Agents could be reduced by 30, 40%, if this were to put forward today. So it's something to be mindful of. At the same time, I think the agents that are out there producing that can demonstrate value in their services, they'll continue to, their business will go unaffected. But the agents that are out there that are really relying on third-party, buy-side opportunities, and they don't really have those relationships, and they can't really demonstrate or articulate the value that they bring to the table as a buy-side agent, those folks are going to struggle. Even the models behind platforms, those platforms will struggle too. So it's something I think everyone needs to be mindful of. Don't have it change your habits today or next week when you're out there sourcing for business and generating new opportunities to be successful. But it's something I think everyone needs to be mindful that it could happen. If it does happen, are you prepared? How are you positioned? Can you demonstrate value that you can provide? What models or how would you present your offering? And then just lastly, Sam, you are correct. In the UK, there's not an MLS. There is really no buy-side agent. If you want one, you can pay, but it's rare. It's usually go directly to the seller and they negotiate the fee. So the average commission fees there are very low. The US, as one of the most developed countries in the world, has one of the highest level of commissions in the world. So there's a very broad view that the commissions here should be dropped accordingly, which I know is not going to be well received on this call today, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think finally, the takeaway is that agents will continue to be imperative and provide value and continue to be at the center of the transaction. So the agent will always be there. It's just the commission structure may change. And again, be mindful of that and how you might adopt to that if that does take place.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, it's something that I like to think about it and talk about it just for our business too, because it's like, if something were to happen, everyone's going to be playing in the same sandbox. And what I love about our model is, with the fixed monthly fees and kind of the fixed costs for our agents, they always kind of know, what they owe us. And then if there were some change where, they have to go negotiate their fee with their buyers or sellers, they know exactly what they owe the brokerage firm. It's way more clear and transparent. They don't have to calculate oh, my brokerage is going to take 30% and then I've got to get this out of this, client or whatnot. So if you don't know what we're talking about, listen to this about this commission lawsuit. I'll share something afterwards. But it's just something that I think about a lot. And yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen right away or, even in the next couple of years. But a lot of the old school brokerage firms don't even bring this stuff up because they almost don't want their agents to be informed, which I think is crazy. And so I love to bring up things that are happening, even if it's controversial or whatnot. So it's interesting to kind of talk about and get people's opinions on, because if it happens and you don't know what we're talking about, then it's going to be way worse. So yeah, I appreciate that. But if you look, I love asking Eric that, because if you look in other markets around the world, like in Australia is similar. I know London's similar, but it's not the norm where the sellers pay the buyer's agent. Like America, when you list a home, the seller pays their agent and they pay the buyer's agent. Consumers a lot of times don't even realize that. Like I remember when I was an agent, sometimes a client would be like, oh, what do I owe you? And it's like, well, if you're representing the buyer, it's the seller pays. But I have friends in London where if they want to buy an estate agent, it's not real estate agent, they would just kind of pay someone almost like you pay a lawyer, where it's hey, my time is worth this. or for 3 months, I'll show you as many homes as you want, and it's $1,000 a month, and then a 1% commission fee or something like that. But I don't know. But I guess our time is up with Eric. He'll be back here on the panel when we all kind of circle back at the end. But thank you. We covered a lot in a short amount of time, and I could keep talking to you for a long time because you've done a lot of cool things in different parts of the space. And I think we'll have time to do this again in the future.
Great.
So thank you
Yeah, no, I
so
appreciate
much for
it.
joining.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. We'll be back in a second. And we're back.
And we're back.
I need to work on my game show host personality, but I've added a hat to this session because Mindy's one of our agents, so I feel like that's appropriate and okay. And if you know me well, you know I love wearing hats, so it was pretty hard for me to not wear a hat on the first 2 sessions. But I'm excited to have Mindy here. She's an agent at our firm, and she's become a good friend of mine since she's joined. And in the months before she joined, when I was trying to convince her to join, we became super close. And I just love talking to her about all things real estate. And she's been an agent for 30 years. She didn't want to say that, but she said that to me earlier. So I guess it's okay to say. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people here know you, Mindy, but kind of maybe start with your background in the space or what you did before real estate or kind of how you got to where you are today. And then we can kind of go from there.
Little background. My mother was a realtor in the state of Florida, and my dad was a builder developer. And I decided I never wanted to go into real estate. I thought it was horrible, long hours, just things that went wrong, and I saw my mom doing all the time. So I became a stockbroker. And my first week on the phone was the market crash. So that was interesting. So I've made it through all kinds of markets and different professions. And then I got engaged and moved up to Northwest Louisiana and decided that I didn't want to do the stockbroker route anymore. And someone convinced me to actually, quite frankly, it was a very bad experience that I had here buying a house. And I decided, wow, if this is the way that it works, I should do pretty good here. So I ended up getting my real estate license and understanding a little bit more. I think everyone can agree that when you buy a house, you learn a lot more about what the whole process takes versus what you think it is from the outside before you actually go through the process of buying a house. So from there, I was with a big box Coldwell Banker for 12-ish years, and then moved to a very large independent in the area that had over 100 agents. And I helped kind of start that up to an extent and maintain that. And then recently came over to Pinnacle because, as we all know, our market's changing and the life of a realtor is changing in the real estate world. So found that Pinnacle was by far the best option for me and for many others at this point.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I know we've talked about that a lot outside of here, but you've obviously been in the industry for a while and seen things change. And what do you kind of think is, most important today when agents are considering a brokerage firm or, trying out something new? And some people think what we're doing is crazy, but I don't think it's that crazy because it's still, we have a lot. I think the main thing that separates our company from a lot of other new age companies is we have our core comes from the real estate industry. Like I've been in this industry since I was 19, and now I'm only 36, but that's only half my life. But a lot of these companies that try to displace or disrupt and all these terms you hear, their leadership wasn't coming from the real estate industry. So I guess from your perspective, I mean, I know now we're on the same team, but what were things that you considered when you were thinking about joining kind of an alternative platform, and what's been surprising about being here, that's made you even happier than kind of before you joined?
Well, I think that the whole model of real estate has changed. There's no question about it. When I first started, you had to be with a big box. If you didn't have, you know, really dating myself, but it's obvious it was before the internet. So if you didn't have a big box name, you had no way to get leads, to know where people were coming from. People didn't know who you were, and you needed to really have your hands held, because today, so much of it, the whole market is shifted towards so much social media. The consumer's different, they're educated. Before, we were the gatekeepers. So
Mhm.
all the information. Now it's out there. So when you go and you're looking at options as a new realtor, you need to have a platform to where you do have some guidance, some mentorship, and you definitely do that. I think where I'm most surprised and pleased with Pinnacle is I really, in the beginning, thought it was just for agents who were already on their path and they knew what to do. And yeah, there was somebody there if you needed them. But what I'm finding is there's a lot of education, there's a lot of hand holding if you choose to take that. Just
Mhm.
like anything else, it was at those other firms too, but if you didn't take advantage of it. So at Pinnacle, to be able to choose what you want, why pay somebody? To me, it's why pay somebody else money for a resource you're not going to use, when
Right.
here at Pinnacle you have the option of all those resources, but now you get to choose what resources you want to use and bring into your business, and have that extra huge hunk percentage to bring into your
Right.
business and use that for the resources. And I think all in all, as an agent, you're getting way more for your money, because you're able to take what you would have given to another brokerage, use it to your own benefit, and then you still have everything that Pinnacle offers you, which truly right now is even more than I saw in the big boxes. So kudos
Right.
to you, your staff, for doing
No, no,
that.
no. I appreciate that. I mean, I know we've talked about that a lot, and that's like, you said it best though. It's like a lot of agents that are at some of these big brokerage firms don't realize, big kind of legacy commission split firms, they don't realize how much of that split is kind of just going towards, paying for services and tools that they are using indirectly. Like I remember when I was an agent at some of those big firms, I would use some of the tools internally, but then I was always using software and services kind of outside of the brokerage, just because not every brokerage provided everything that every agent needed. Um, and so I love that you said that. It's like, to me, it's like every single agent's business is completely different. And real estate agents, in a way, are like CEOs of their own small business, which I don't know if I made that up. I've heard that somewhere, but it's like this unique industry where agents are 1099. It's almost like a B2B platform in a way, the way I think about it. It's like I see our role as a place to think about what's best for the agent. And then if you can make the agents the best they can be, then it improves like the consumer experience. So I mean, I think you phrased it even better than I did, but for agents that are, you know, thinking about, how they can keep up with, the pace of change and things like that, do you think it's important for the brokerage to kind of, share ideas, make partnerships? Like, I know that's something that we're still working on that a lot ourselves, like with Pinnacle HQ and kind of our partnership side of the business. But how important is it to you that, a firm kind of have partnerships and things in place outside of like the core brokerage things? Like, is that important to your business? And you don't have to answer that like I know we didn't rehearse these, so say
No,
whatever
no,
you
no.
want, but I'm just curious how important you think it is as an agent to have like additional services and support at a firm.
Well, so here's the bottom line too, is that we all know that we get 100 calls a day about different options and different resources, and make your SEO better, and make your website presence better, and make your social marketing better, and make your direct mail marketing better. So by having, I mean, that's a full-time job. Just researching those, and what you said as your own CEO, you are your own business. And for the realtors who don't treat it like a business and treat it as a part-time job, you're not going to be successful. You have to treat this that you're the CEO of your business and take control of it. So to have those other resources that you vet and kind of go through to where it saves me hundreds of hours going through social media companies, or here's a CRM that you have an affiliation with that you've already looked at and say, hey, new agent, if you need a CRM, we've looked at this. This is a great CRM. It works well. And then to have the advantage that you gave us a discount. Like I've been with some companies for a long time and they give me a discount because I've been with them for so long. And then I join Pinnacle and they're like, you can get it even cheaper. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
Right.
But it's you're saving money there too by knowing you have a great product that you don't have to do the research. So it helps out a new agent or an existing agent find good products without having to spend hours and hours doing it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because there's so many tools and there's so much noise in the space and there's so many things to keep up with. And some agents, when they join us, if they have a tool that they've been using for 10 years and they love it, like our, thought on that is people should be able to use whatever they want. I think, you and I have both gotten a lot of questions about our company and people say some interesting things about what we're doing from time to time. But like in full transparency, it's like we're building, I use this analogy of like a home, like a lot of the old school brokerage models, it's like they're like remodeled houses in a way where like the foundation is still this like commission split business model. And then they're kind of remodeling it as they go with trying to add on like services or support or, the newest technology, or trying to convince agents that the split that they're taking, they're providing this value and support. And so a lot of the legacy firms play in, I call it like the commission split gray area, where like they want to provide just enough service and support to justify the fee, where the agent feels like they're getting something for the fee. And that's how a lot of us have had our, entire careers. Like firms I was with, we're always on these splits. So like, how much better do you like being in an environment where like, you just pay a monthly fee, you know exactly kind of what you owe. And then if you want to add on services, it's there, but you don't have to. It's like, how has that kind of changed just like your business or the way that you think about your business, just having this fixed fee instead of having this kind of like, known but unknown kind of split that you would have paid traditionally?
Well, I think that with this, because our market is changing so much too, being able to know exactly what your commission is, to get all of it, to be able to, if you need to for a client, negotiate it in order to help them. Because what you're finding out in this market is you have to help and have a value proposition. I heard, both the guys before it say, everybody wants to buy a home and no one understands how hard it is. So if you can't make a value proposition of why you're different, you're not going to succeed, and you need to be able to hold their hand. So when you're getting the full commission or you're having the services at Pinnacle, I'm now able to provide more to my client than I could have before. Because before I felt like my entire commission was being eaten up if I wanted to do extra services. It's just the money just that it eats away. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is how expensive it is to be a realtor. And now it's about relationships. So you have to do things to keep those relationships over a long period of time. I don't know if everybody on here is from our market, but the Shreveport-Bossier market, when I started, had about 800, I think it grew up to about 1,100 agents, and now we're over 1,800 agents. So everybody jumped on in COVID, and everybody jumped on thinking this was the easy moneymaker. Everybody jumped on because they didn't have a job anymore, and they thought, oh, I don't need, a 4-year degree to do this. I go take a test, and I'll make 6% on something is $6,000 and I'll sell $100,000 house. Well, we all know that that's not true. So
Right.
I think that what we figured out is we have to do something different, because now my relationship with XYZ, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, now they know 7 other agents. So you have to make yourself different. And Pinnacle, to me, allows me to do that by being able to do more for my client and provide more services. I think the challenge is that every agent has to figure out what those services are that are needed and to do it quickly, to find out what they are, to set yourself apart from people.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting because a lot of people, like in this changing environment, like during COVID and all these things, I think the amount of agents in America reached an all-time high, and a lot of people will get their license to sell like one house or things like that. But, the National Association of Realtors this year is thinking that like 15% of all licensed people in America will drop off. And this happened also after like 2008, there was also like a big decline in agents. But even with that, like you're saying, everyone knows multiple real estate agents. And so being able to like reinvest into yourself, that's something I always say to, agents that are asking, how does being at a platform like yours help my business? And it's like, well, if you think about it like a business, like you're saying, a lot of the money that you're saving, or that would traditionally be going towards like a commission split, it's like you can go rent your own office like you've done. There's a lot of ways people can reinvest into their business. Yeah, and so for everyone that doesn't know, one cool thing that Mindy's done, we don't have big agent offices. We have little satellite offices, and like we have a little satellite office in Shreveport that people use, but Mindy, wanted her own space, and she went and got it, has her own office space and things like this. And we've had agents do this in other markets where they're saving money and they realize they can kind of, go build, their own business, get an office, hire, a marketing person, hire another agent. So how do you think, like, that's kind of an indirect benefit of our platform, but how do you think that helps too with, agents thinking about their business, being able to reinvest in themselves?
Well, most people during COVID found out that they didn't have to have an office, or they didn't go to the office. But one thing that I guess my skew is a little different. Rather than looking at it as in investing in myself, I look at it as being able to invest in my clients, because all of us know that if we don't keep our clients, it doesn't matter, what I do for myself. That's not what keeps clients. It's keeping clients is investing in the clients. So I think that this platform allows me to invest in my clients more. And when I have more clients and they're happy with the services I provide, then you're going to get more clients. So it's a backwards benefit. I don't look at it as investing in me. I think it allows me to invest in other people, and that return comes back to me tenfold.
Yeah, I love that. No, I mean, I love to hear that, because the way that I thought about this company from the beginning was, it's like, if you can make the agents, like I said this before, but if you really believe that agents are the center of the transaction on the, buying and selling of a home, because consumers want to work with a good agent. If you make the experience the best it can be for the agent, then it kind of indirectly makes the consumer experience better. Where I think a lot of firms try to think directly to the consumer or getting rid of the agent, where like we're trying to think about it as the agent is the most important business person in the transaction. The consumer is the most important person, because without them there'd be no transactions. But Yeah, I mean, you said it better than me. That makes a
Well,
lot of sense.
you have to make yourself different with social media these days, and the way that it is. In the past, people just knew you. Now you can be a brand new agent from a day old to somebody that's been doing this 100 years, and no one knows the difference. So you've
Mhm.
got to figure out how to set yourself apart, whether it's by, well, you have to have the customer service, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to set yourself apart. So there was a study that said 82% of all millennials want to buy a house. And then if you look at the other
Mhm.
spectrum from the seniors, the only way they know to buy a house is to go to realtors. So when they
Mhm.
go there, the biggest thing that I hear from clients is, oh, you made it so easy because you had
Right.
the services. So when you do that, this platform allows me to show people more what I can do. It allows me to
Mhm.
advertise more, maybe the differences of what I can do compared to somebody else. Because the general consumer right now, they go on social media, and let's face it, I'm not the best with social media and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I'm not trying to be
Right.
an influencer. So I've got to figure out what makes people still want to go to me versus the brand new agent that's out there. And the brand new agent deserves just as much of a chance. I was, a brand new agent, and I did really good my first year. But it's all in the knowledge, and you can look the same. New agents, if you answer your phone, that's the biggest gripe that I have, but you
Mhm.
have to be knowledgeable, because selling a house is so much more than opening a door. You have to be
Right.
able to assimilate them into a community, make them feel comfortable. Most people right now are very unsure whether they're making a good decision because of interest rates, because of climbing values, that they need your expertise to know what they should or shouldn't do. I've heard Tim say stuff about it's never a bad time. Educating yourself to stand out from other people, and being able to project that, because now we have the resources to do that. And Pinnacle allows me to keep more money to advertise more, or
Right.
my name out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, something you said earlier about, the value of which I've written about this a lot too. So I love that you said this, but the value of the agent used to be like this gatekeeper, or like the reason people called agents 20 years ago before Zillow was because they literally didn't know what was on the market. So like the value of the agent traditionally was literally because you had to call the agent to know what was on the market. And now, you know, information is just like a commodity. Everyone has the same information. So like the way that you stand out is by being like a consultant or like a, concierge almost to your clients. So like I think just thinking about in summary with our conversation, it's like that to me is something that a lot of agents don't think about. The gatekeeper mentality, if people think their value is still in like hoarding information, is like completely behind the times. Anyone can go online and find out information. And there's probably someone on here right now saying, well, off market listings or something, like I get it. There's still a lot of like things that just happen in local markets, but for 95% of the homes that are available, everyone has the same information. You can look up, neighborhood info. And so for the best agents to kind of stand out, it's their, knowledge about the neighborhood or the schools or restaurants, or, if someone's moving to a city, like, hey, this is the best neighborhood for, this school district. Or something that I always used to say to people, it was like, you should drive by houses, at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and midnight, because that street that you love, you might not realize between 2 and 4 p.m., there's this horrible carpool line that you may not know. I mean, like funny things like this are what make agents stand out. And I think that's what you're saying. It's like, it's these little things that have nothing to do with the house. Like the real work to me begins when you get the house under contract, is what I used to always say. And so like, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that.
Well, my daughter
Value.
is 22. She just started. She's been with me since I obviously pregnant and still showing property. And she was like, wow, it's a lot different than I thought. And, the thing I think that makes a good agent and the big difference in today's market is you not only have to open the door, you have to know the knowledge of the values around you, but then have a network. Like I can go in and we could talk about, yes, we can repaint, but you've got to have those resources of, I've got a painter, we could repaint this room for $200. We could repaint this whole house for $8,000 when they're thinking $10,000. You have to really have all the answers and keep learning to where it's, contractors for the house, remodelers, stagers. You do have to, a lot of these companies are going to the boutique experience because they're seeing that it's so much more. Zillow's hiring people to open the door and write the offer and a flat fee. Well, that can work, but why are you still going to be in business? And we've all talked about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, if the commission structure changes with the lawsuits, we have to really figure out what makes us different. And we have to communicate with them, with our client, and inform them. And we have to really, somebody said something about emotions. This is one of the most emotional purchases ever, and one of the biggest investments. And if you start getting mad at the other agent because you don't like the way they responded, your client doesn't need to hear it. You need to be the moderator to make it the smoothest transaction, to where it cracks me up, to where the hardest ones are the ones that you go to the table and they're like, oh, this was so easy. You made it look so easy. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know how many times that I was crying in the bathroom because this agent was so rude and so mean, or, they were ridiculous at what they were asking my client to do, that I had to monitor. And I think that's one of the biggest things too, is being able to handle the stress, being able to know what you should and shouldn't say to your client, because you can have something blow up over nothing. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you have to communicate. My biggest gripe with younger agents, millennials, is that everybody wants to text. Everybody wants to text everything, but everybody knows that text gets lost in translations. Pick up the phone, talk to people, say, hey, I just sent you an offer. Let me tell you about it. I've had offers that sat in my mailbox because I'm out and being busy for 24 hours. And I never even knew that it was in my mailbox because no one ever bothered to text me, call me. They just expected it to happen. So I think that education, communication, and really figuring out what your value is when you go on a listing appointment. Why should they use you over someone else? And if you're in it a week, you can be just as experienced and have just as many resources as somebody who's really been doing it for 30 years, but you got to make the effort to do so. You've got to treat it like a business. And when I was a stockbroker, I had to know just as much about the IPO coming out, or the public offering, or the stock, as the 30-year-old veteran, or else somebody wasn't going to buy from it, period, end of subject. So you really have to be knowledgeable. And I think the last thing I'll say is, it's just like when you go into a doctor. If they were to say, hey, yeah, you're not feeling good, and I'll go back and I'll figure out what's wrong, because I really have no idea. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying you need to find an answer. But if you have somebody that comes in and says, hey, I've seen this before and I know this, and this is what we're going to do to get you better, you're going to keep going back to that doctor. You're not going to go to the one who doesn't have answers for you. So be educated, communicate, control their emotions. Just like a doctor, you can say, hey, you're dying, and end it, or you can say, hey, you're dying, but guess what? We have a cure for it. So it's a lot of presentation and how you handle each other and how you handle that customer sense that keeps you successful.
No, that's awesome. Well, our time is up with Mindy one-on-one, but we'll be back in a second with everyone in our panel. And in the next session, if anyone has any questions that they want to ask us, I think there'll be a way to type in a little question to ask that we can discuss. If there's anything that we just talked about on any of these y'all want to ask us. So thank you to Mindy very much.
Glad to be here.
We obviously love having you here at our company, and you've inspired us in many ways and, helped us grow, and you give me a lot of good ideas with things to think about for the future. So I'm excited to keep working with you too. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll be back in a second. We're back. All four of us. Thank you for everyone who's still logged in and watching. This has obviously been a lot of fun. This is our last session with all four of us here together on this panel. If there's any specific question that anyone wants to ask us, I think there's a way to type it in. And if not, we'll just have to come up with our own. This is fitting. This last weekend, I actually went to the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting in Omaha, and the whole format of that was Q&A, which was interesting, watching Warren Buffett, who's 92 years old, sit on stage for 6 hours, and he answered over 65 questions. So if y'all can't come up with, there's one question. Okay, I was saying that to inspire some questions. Let's see. We have one question in here. Do you think the tiny housing market is a good way to reduce homelessness or kind of the housing shortage in our country? That's actually something that Tim and I could probably comment on. Being in the Bay Area, there were a number of startups 4 or 5 years ago that were trying to kind of solve the housing shortage problem. Like Tim was saying earlier, since 2008 in America, the market has still not caught up with the number of kind of home builders that went out of business. So there's been a shortage of homes for sale in our country for over a decade now. And a lot of people don't understand that, because you think like, people would just build more. So many people got wiped out in 2008, 2010 that the inventory is still not caught up. So there's been a lot of companies that have tried to solve this through these ADU, accessory dwelling units, building back houses or tiny houses or things, in unused land. And for me, I think that helps solve part of the problem, but I think it's a lot more complicated than just that fact alone. There's a lot of things that kind of go into that, but Tim, maybe you have something to say about that too.
Yeah, I think that there's two questions here. One is, are tiny houses part of solving the supply issue? And then second, is the homeless crisis a supply side issue, right? And I think that both of these are really complicated questions that are going to take a multifaceted approach to solve them. And so while I'm not an expert on homelessness, what I'd say is supply is part of that problem, but a lot of, I grew up in San Francisco or the Bay Area, so we've seen a lot of that problem in San Francisco. Also, when we moved to Austin, I think that it's a three-pronged problem. One is affordability, two is mental health, and three is drug addiction. And I'm not trying to stigmatize anybody, but it's just those are three of the leading issues, and we have to address all three of those. And I'm not an expert, and so I won't talk about the second two. But the first is the affordability issue is fundamentally a supply and demand issue. And so anything that we can do to reduce the barriers of providing supply, I'm an economist at heart, right? If we can increase supply, that will bring down the prices and we'll find a better equilibrium. And so I think that a lot of these municipalities have really regressive tax structures. They have really regressive regulations in terms of trying to avoid any more construction or development. And so I don't know if tiny houses is enough of the solution, but anything that increases supply, I'm in favor of. I guess I would leave it at that.
Cool. And let's see. There's a question here. Are you working in Dallas, Texas? I mean, our company's now live in 5 markets. So we're in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Florida, and then we're launching North Carolina soon. And we're also working on launching California soon. So I'll let everyone else kind of comment there. Tim, what cities do y'all work in, or states? And then Eric, and then obviously Mindy, we know where you work. Would you tell us more about that too?
So we can operate in almost every state. The Northeast is tough for us from a regulatory environment. And then there are some portions of California that are tough for us from a regulatory environment, but we're certainly across the state of Texas, Louisiana. Most of the folks on this call are either from Texas or Louisiana. Is that correct, Sam?
Yeah, I think we have people from all over, but I would say the majority are probably in those two markets.
Yeah, we're across both of those markets for sure.
Let's see. Here's one.
I know people are interested in your lead sources and where do you get those? And I think I see another lead question also.
All right. Yeah. So to our platform, Veracrest, as I mentioned earlier, we partner with folks that have a captive audience that generate transaction volume. We add real estate brokers to their ecosystem. So as a result, we place those leads with third-party real estate professionals that meet our minimum qualification standards. So if anyone's interested, we have national opportunities. I can post a link here. It's just a registration page. And we look at years of experience, transaction experience, customer reviews. We look at some criteria from a performance perspective. But yeah, everyone's welcome to join, sign up. We're targeting several markets out of the gates, but we have national partners we'll be adding within the next 60 to 90 days. So now's an opportune time to sign up. There's no cost. It's simply a referral fee at the end, a success-based fee. And there's no cost to join, as I mentioned. So I'd love to have you guys join, especially knowing you're with a prominent, well-established real estate firm with a leader like Sam. And Sam didn't pay me to say that. So.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, yeah, we just kind of made all this up as we've been going, and I'm not even kidding. And if you know me, you know that's 100% true. But here's one that popped in for you. For an agent, it looks like it's from an agent. I don't have a CRM in place. How important do you think having a CRM is, just, as an agent and doing as much business as you do?
I think it's one of the most important things to have. And I'm thinking about a book of the things that you shouldn't do, or the things you should do to not be successful in real estate, since everyone's writing what you should do to be successful. And one of the first things, if you want to blow it, and I look back at some of the things that I wish I would have done differently, is not having a CRM to keep in touch. And I'll be real brief. The reasons why you want a CRM is because with the number of leads that come in, it's impossible to keep in touch with everyone. And if you have a CRM and you set up drip campaigns, people will pop out of left field that you never had the option of knowing were looking, and will become clients. I used to tell people in new realtors, if you collect 10 names a day and throw it in your CRM, whether it's business cards you pick up, everybody's going to need a house somehow, and you can keep in touch with 10,000 people to where you humanly cannot without a CRM. Secondly is what I've said about keeping in touch with people. If you keep in touch with people, they're most likely going to use you again. It's the worst feeling in the world when you drive down the street and you see somebody else's sign in the yard. And if you would have kept in touch with that person, and you haven't, shame on me for not doing it. And you can't blame yourself for losing that business. So the CRM allows you to do that as well. And lastly, it allows you to put in recall to where, when you're doing a lot of stuff, my goal is to try to talk to 10 people every day. I don't remember what I said to them. I don't remember what I'm supposed to call them back. And so it's an automated to where when you come in the morning, you can flip it on and you have all your notes in there. You know who you're supposed to call back every day. And it just systems. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it, but it really does make a difference. So I think CRM is one of the most important client handling provisions you can have.
Yep. No, that's awesome. Tim, here's one for you from Diane Tharp. She's one of our first agents in Florida that just joined recently. So I love to see this question. Tim, with with buying our sellers' houses and giving them a flexible closing date so we can do back-to-back closings. How can we remove that contingency so the lender is happy? She's in Pensacola, Florida, but you can kind of explain how that works a little bit more.
Well, so Pensacola and Destin are near and dear to my heart. Sam keeps giving me a hard time. My previous career, I was actually a fighter pilot in the Navy. So,
Yes, I'm glad this came up naturally. I didn't have to ask. I'm so happy right now.
so I trained in Pensacola and then learned to fly the F-35 in Destin. And so the question was, how do we make lenders happy, right? And so the actual underwriting guidelines, and by the way, we started our company originally as a mortgage lender. And so everything that we built was around the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines. It was around the large institutional guidelines and how do you actually get somebody to qualify. And so if you have a executed sales contract that has cleared the financing contingency, the underwriter can ignore the mortgage payment from the departing residents. And so number one is the fact that you have that contract enables your client to qualify for the next home. And then number two is because we will close on that contract 24 to 72 hours before you need the funds for the new purchase. We will send the executed closing disclosure to the lender, and it really works seamlessly. And we've done this hundreds of times across the country to include in Florida.
Nice. Here's one that I'll answer. Ted Malone asked, how do you think Pinnacle's fee structure might change in the next 5 years? This is one I get a lot because I think there's a lot of other companies in our space that as they grow, they may offer a certain sort of fee structure in the beginning and they get bigger and they change the commission split structure. They have commission splits and they add resource fees or E&O fees or all of this other crap that people start adding on. So like the thing that you need to know about me and the way that I think is like I fundamentally think commission splits are like a horrible way to build a business in today's world. And most other brokerage firms disagree with me on that, but I think that's why their businesses are not as sound as ours because their revenue is not predictable. And so something that agents don't think about is the way that we build our business and have these recurring monthly fees, in some transaction fees on some of our plans, we have a much better business foundation than a lot of commission split brokerage firms have no way to predict their revenue. They can model and forecast things all they want, but literally they don't have the revenue until it closes, where with us, we still have some unknown, but we're able to model things out a lot better. We can kind of see where our revenue is going. We have, recurring payments coming in. So the only way that I don't see our fee structure fundamentally ever changing, because the reason I started this business was to build a transformational kind of fee structure and build an entirely new way for our company. So the only thing that I would say that, would change would be, with inflation and things in the future, all businesses, you may raise your prices a little bit, like on the monthly fee or something like that. Or like if you have to, increase a fee just because things become more expensive. But I would never see we would never add commission splits. We would never like add on, mandatory fees. Like I've been at firms like going back to Compass, before they went public, started adding on a lot of fees because they were a venture-backed company. We're a venture-backed company, but I don't think every venture-backed company can be thrown into the same bucket. We build our company in a way where we kind of focus on being profitable, where a lot of companies burn money and pray for the next round. And right now, we're not in an environment where you can operate like that. And so I think, fee structure, just being super transparent. Maybe there's like nominal or just kind of like market trending increases in like a monthly fee or something like that. But I don't see our fee structure ever like transformationally changing. So um, that's one that I just loved answering because a lot of people, we should have another session about how our business is built and the way that we think about like expenses and income and revenue, because I think there's a lot of questions around that we could go into. Um, but let's see. There's one, or here's another one. What is your fee structure? Yeah, so the way we have various plans. We have a number of different plans, from kind of an annual plan where you pay a annual fee, and then there's some per deal transaction fees involved. And then the majority of our plans are monthly fee based, where you just pay one monthly fee, and then that's it. And then we also, in a number of our markets, have a white label product that essentially allows the agent to brand themselves. You could have Tim Herman Realty in Austin, Texas, and all of the forward-facing branding is Tim, and behind the scenes, we're running all the operations. So that's kind of our, on one end of the spectrum, this white label product, and that's what we're rolling out in California soon and a number of other states. But we kind of think about our products and having something that fits an agent no matter where you are in your journey. The annual fee plan, some people choose because they like that better. And, like Mindy's on our monthly plan. But really, we try to think about ways to solve the problems for agents no matter where you are in the journey. A lot of firms, whether they mean to or not, kind of pigeonhole themselves into being like a luxury firm or, a certain type of the market firm, where we don't really think about it like that. We just kind of think about how can we serve the agents the best and just build products that make sense, and then kind of add services that they can choose from. So
Can
that's
I
kind
add
of how we
something
think
to
about
that,
it.
Sam?
Yeah.
So the one thing that in talking to some different agents who have made the move is they've thought, well, I'm going to go out and do my own brokerage, and I'm a licensed broker. I easily could have done that. My thought to people who are thinking about Pinnacle, or, I saw a question that, Kyle had about, do you think you'll see franchises at Old School being folded and bought out by corporate? Yeah, I do, because I think people are doing are a little scared right now. But I think for people who are looking to leave that corporate structure with Pinnacle, you can be your own broker. You can do the Pinnacle model, or you can do the white box model, but nowhere are you going to find a back office manager, an office manager, an accounting department that is anywhere as cheap as the monthly fees that you get at Pinnacle. And even if it was $500 a month and you have $6,000 a year or whatever, what employee can you get for $6,000 that you're getting everything that you're getting at Pinnacle? And basically you are your own brokerage with the white box theory. Or I went with Pinnacle side because I think that there's some benefit in groups of seeing a lot of Pinnacle signs around, but I still have my own brand on it. It just has the Pinnacle on it. So for people thinking about that, I think that both of those are great options, that you have, again, the cheapest staff and cheapest overhead, so you can help serve people.
So Mindy, I'm actually interested in a couple of things that you had said in your session. And I'm not just trying to pump Sam up. I actually believe in the model that you guys are going on. But in your session, you said that with Pinnacle, you're getting cheaper pricing on your CRM or one of the services that you had, even with a like longevity, with a long relationship. And then 2, you talked about needing to vet all of these different resources, right? And you have to know everything so that you can be this concierge. My view is that the reason that I'm bullish on Pinnacle is because they research all of these different solutions for the agent and say, hey, here's a vetted solution in X, Y, and Z, but also that they have pricing power right? Because they have the scale to negotiate better contracts that you just like flat out wouldn't be able to get access to if you went out on your own. Um, is that the right way to think about it? Do you think about it that way?
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, even with something like dot loop, I mean, all I did was call Sam and say, "Hey, we need dot loop." We didn't have it, and he got it, and he called him, and they're like, "This is your rate." He's like, "No, that's not good enough," and he got us a better rate. Than
Right.
I had at a big brokerage with 70 something members on it. But the important thing there is not only do they vet it, but they ask the agents because we're real hands on. So when it was like CRMs, what do you think about this? So you've got such an amazing collaborative experience, pricing and vetting that Pinnacle brings to you. So yes, absolutely. Did that answer?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's why I think that this model, Pinnacle's not going to be the only one to do it, but this model is going to win. I think Pinnacle will win. I think you guys are onto something.
Yeah. No, and like an example of that, like with Tim's company right now, we're going to launch a partnership soon, where our agents can, have a dedicated. There'll be more for our agents that are listening. There'll be a lot more information coming out about this in the next couple of weeks. But basically, we're going to launch a partnership with Tim's company where there'll be someone on his staff that's always available to answer questions for agents here that want to use the product. And so, like, I mean, Tim and I are friends, but I love his product too. And I really think, for a lot of people, it's a great thing in a lot of situations. And the way that we think about it is we add it to the platform. And if you want to use it, you can. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. So it's like, I mean, I think that's kind of a perfect example of how we think about this stuff. And if there's some tool that comes out in 3 years that we've never heard of, instead of having to like scramble and like build it internally, we can just make a partnership and launch it, and our agents can benefit from it, as quick as possible. So,
Well, and one of the examples to tie the last two together, right, is you can use our product if you're anywhere, but if you need to have certain production thresholds to have access to a partnership where we'll revenue share. And like I said in my panel, is like, we're not trying to charge agents anything. We're trying to create value. We're trying to charge a fee that is less than the value that we create. And then we're trying to share that fee with our partners, whether that's agents or lenders, right? And for it to make sense to have these relationships where we're sharing revenue, there needs to be a certain volume, right? And just by being part of the Pinnacle network, being part of the Pinnacle agency, we're offering that revenue share to all of your agents. And by the way, and Sam vetted this, we spent lots of time and money on RESPA lawyers. It's all very, it is all compliant.
Yes.
But it's the same thing as the pricing power that you have with dot loop or anywhere else. Is I think that there is some scale and some benefits to what you guys are building.
Definitely.
I do have a question.
Here.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Look, if y'all are not finished, if you're finished with that conversation, sorry, Tim.
No, I'm done.
excited.
Oh, no.
I'm excited to hear about it. There was a question about lead generation, and I want to go to Eric on that, if you don't mind, just because with his business, and I know that from the time I started to now, lead gen has drastically changed. I mean, before it was knocking on doors and cold calling and doing mailers, and now with social media, it's changed so much. How's your business changed? What do you do differently to help find leads? Because new agents do rely on that as they're building their business, and even old ones. I pay for it.
So specifically for our business, it's more bottom of the funnel lead generation opportunities. So these are high intent, high qualified leads that are ready to buy or sell by the time we hand them off to a licensed real estate professional. If you go back to kind of the more traditional platforms out there, if you're converting 2-3% top of the funnel leads, you're doing really well. These are leads that are really yours to lose, because again, by the time a lead is brought in house through Veracrest, our platform, I'll be specific, we have a concierge desk that engages with them, asks the pre-qualification questions. What is your timing? Are you qualified? Do you need to sell a home first? Is there any specific preferences that you have? Then we place with a local agent. And we're not looking to scale, 100 agents in a marketplace. We just want one or two good partners in a very geographical region. So that's how our model is a little different. And I'm going to skip real quick. I see a question on AI here. Someone asked about latest development. So I'll just add my 2 cents on there. I think from an AI perspective, I think it's still early days in the real estate sector. Folks trying to define a use case. I think the question is it revolutionary or evolutionary? And right now, I think the use cases that we're seeing is more on a customer support perspective, a chatbot. We're seeing and providing copy support, maybe data mining through your database, through your CRM to kind of help generate new opportunities. So I know my views of the world on AI, it's still early days, and I think it could be part of a broker tech stack going forward. So I'll pause right there and let someone else jump in.
Yeah, the AI one is interesting. I get that question a lot, but like I wrote an article about this like a couple of months ago, and like I think one of the coolest like just funny little things with the AI or like Chat GPT is improving the quality of listing descriptions for properties. Like it's funny when you're an agent, when you get a new listing, a lot of times the first thing that I would do is you go look and see if it's been listed before and kind of look at the description, and maybe you use that as a baseline to write a new listing description, because a lot of agents hate writing listing descriptions. And so like with Chat GPT and a lot of these other tools, it's like I've messed around with like, hey, describe this property or this, and it kind of helps like improve the quality of the writing. But yeah, I think the AI things help our industry a lot, and they could automate customer support, or like we use a Intercom, which is like a chat service that we have on our website, and we have like on our Pinnacle HQ, and little things like that. It's not totally AI, but just there's a lot of ways you can implement those things in your business that help a lot. Let's see. We've probably got a few more minutes. Let's see. Here, there's one question that I want to ask Eric, just because he's been in so many parts of the industry. That this isn't a question that's on the side, but something I always like to ask people that have been in industries a long time is, what's something you wish you knew 10 years ago or what's something you wish you knew, like 10 years ago that you know now? Like, just what have you learned, in the last 10 years? It doesn't have to be exactly 10 years, but just for people that are younger in the industry, or, like just getting started, it's like, what's something just from your perspective that now that you wish you had known previously?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not so much what I learned, it's something I wish I had, which is patience. Nothing's happening overnight. I've been involved in several startups, and after 4 or 5 months, if you're not a hockey stick projection, I walked away from a few models where, in hindsight, if I kind of would have put my head down and stayed focused on kind of the end game, things would probably be a little different today on some of these ventures. So if you're an agent, broker, any outside the industry, just have patience. Again, it's a you hear this all the time. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon, but it really is. Just have a very very defined plan of action. Focus on execution. Right now, we're in a challenging market, so I think there's an opportune time for you to kind of just keep your head down, focus on the basics, continue to prospect, build your business, build relationships, build the relationships across the community, and just stay focused. And it's a long game at the end of the day. Mindy could probably elaborate from an agent perspective, broker perspective, having been in it for a while. But patience is probably something I wish I had more of.
Yeah, Mindy, what about you? And then you can answer this question too that's over here, like about tools or what you see as crucial to your business, and that might be the last one.
Yeah, I think I'll tie in real quick the AI too. Some of the new CRMs, as far as tools that I have as far as the CRM, some of the CRMs are now offering AI, and that really is cool because they'll start engaging with the client and you don't even realize it. And then it'll, alert you that, hey, somebody's actually responding to your request and you're talking. So in that, I think it's very beneficial. I think it's non-beneficial because we're all getting hit with a lot of AI text messaging. So you have to very quickly pick up on it and to make it beneficial and to make sure that somebody knows that it's really a person there instead of a bot, or else it's just going to tick somebody off and not want to work with you, because it still is about the personal experience in the end of the day. And I think all of us know that. Here's something, other tools, or what I wish I would have known, is really that, gosh, I keep saying the CRM, but keeping in touch with people, because I've lost a lot of clients for not doing it. Over 30 years, you'd think I'd have, a gazillion contacts and leads and follow up, and I do have a lot, but I should have much more, and that I really regret. That I wish I would have known to keep in touch with people a little better than I did, because I think when you start, you're after the end goal and you're not after the experience. So what Eric was saying, having patience and sticking to it and taking care of your customer first and being honest, goes a long way. And a lot of that patience is, oh my God, these people haven't made a decision yet. Oh, they like this house, let's just push them into a house. When it's really not the best decision, will bite you later in the butt, to where if
Right.
you have patience to stay the steady course with them, they're going to be happier. They're going to know you took care of them, and you're going to get business from it. So there's patience in a lot of ways. Keeping your head down, I think what Eric said, and staying that course is very important, and being truthful, and taking care of your client, being a resource for everything for them with the home buying experience, not just finding a house.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, I mean, I think we're out of time. I appreciate everyone who stuck around and watched for the whole session, and this went by super fast for us. Hopefully it was impactful and, fun to watch on the other side of things. But I just wanted to say thanks to Mindy and Eric and Tim for taking the time. They're all super busy, and we're really grateful to have such a great panel. And this was the first time we've done this, so we're looking to kind of do this, maybe once a quarter or something, just on different topics and things. So I'm sure you'll see more of these three in future sessions, and you'll learn more about Tim's company and product if you're a Pinnacle agent, just internally soon. And Eric, it's always fun to talk to you. You've taught me a lot of things too, just with your perspective on so many different things. So really appreciate you being here. And Mindy's our celebrity guest. Everyone at Pinnacle loves her. So thanks again to everyone that joined, and we look forward to doing this again soon. So that's all for today, but thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Sam.
everybody.
See ya. Bye.